The Marvel Universe doesn't fall in some giant cosmic war. It dies because one man gets scared, and that's what makes this story so ugly. When the first hero goes down, the real question isn't who did it. It's how long it takes everyone else to realize the killer is one of their own. This nightmare comes out of Marvel Ruins, that brutal alternate story where everything goes wrong, and at the center of it is Victor Von Doom. Not the proud monarch in shining armor, not the theatrical supervillain who loves hearing himself talk. Here, he's a man rotting from the inside, trapped in a body ruined by disease and pain, sitting in a cold chamber full of metal and medical gear, convinced the universe itself has cheated him. And that belief is exactly what turns one grudge into mass murder. The first big crack appears with the Fantastic Four, and it's not clean or glorious. Doom targets them with the kind of bitterness that feels personal, like every move has been rehearsed in his head for years, and when Reed and the others are dragged into his trap, the room doesn't look like a battlefield so much as an execution site. Sparks spit from broken machinery, steel doors slam shut, and by the time it's over, Marvel's first family is torn apart so fast the rest of the world barely understands what just happened, which leaves one terrifying problem hanging in the air. If Doom can do this to them, who's actually safe now? That fear spreads before the facts do, because heroes are used to giant threats, alien invasions, world-ending beams in the sky. They're not ready for a killer who understands them, who knows where they live, how they think, and exactly which weakness to press first. Doom doesn't stomp through the world announcing himself like a Saturday morning villain. He moves like a man scratching names off a list, and every death makes the next one easier, because panic starts doing half the work for him. What makes this hit harder is that the universe around him is already cracked, sick, and unstable. This isn't a bright world full of clean victories. It's a rotten version of Marvel where powers go wrong, bodies break down, and being special usually means suffering in public. So Doom doesn't feel like some impossible outside force crashing in. He feels like the worst symptom of a universe that was already dying, and now the question stops being whether the heroes can stop him and turns into whether this world was ever savable in the first place. And that's where the story gets mean, because you expect resistance. You expect somebody to draw a line, gather survivors, come up with a desperate plan. Give us that classic last stand. Instead, the deeper you go, the more this universe feels stunned, hollowed out, like every hallway is 1 minute too late, and every rescue arrives to a room that's already gone cold. And if that kind of dark Marvel storytelling pulls you in, hit like and subscribe, because this is only the beginning of how bad Doom is about to make it. The worst part is that Doom isn't killing for simple conquest. He's not building a throne out of corpses and declaring himself king of the ashes. He's lashing out at existence itself, turning his own ruin into a reason that nobody else deserves to keep their miracles. And once you understand that, every new victim feels less like a battle and more like a verdict, which is exactly why the next heroes he goes after matter so much. That verdict lands on the Fantastic Four, and Doom makes it personal in the cruelest way possible. Reed Richards isn't facing some giant army or cosmic weapon here. He's staring at the one man who knows exactly where to cut, exactly which nerve to touch, exactly how to turn genius into helplessness. When Doom comes for them, it doesn't feel like a supervillain attack. It feels like a man settling a score he's been rehearsing in his head for years, and the second Reed realizes that the room is already too small and the danger is already too close. Sue, Johnny, and Ben try to do what they always do. They react fast, they protect each other, they turn panic into teamwork. But this story has no patience for heroic rhythm anymore. Doom breaks through that rhythm like a hammer through glass, and the image that sticks is Reed, twisted and stretched beyond control, his own body becoming a trap instead of a gift. It's ugly, sudden, and mean in a way Marvel stories usually save for nightmare sequences, except this time nobody wakes up. And if you've ever wanted a villain story that actually commits to its own darkness, this is the point where a like and subscribe honestly helps, because we're only getting deeper into the part most people never forget. And then he goes after the X-Men, which sounds like the moment the universe should finally push back. A whole team of powerful mutants, different abilities, different instincts, all trained to survive impossible fights. On paper, this should be where Doom slows down. Instead, it becomes another reminder that raw power means nothing when the person hunting you understands fear better than hope. He doesn't charge them like a warlord looking for glory. He corners them, picks the weak moment, and turns their gifts into liabilities. So what should have been a desperate stand starts feeling like a slaughter before the dust even settles. The brutal genius of this storyline is that it keeps taking groups who usually carry their own world and reducing them to one horrifying image. With the X-Men, it's not just bodies dropping. It's the feeling of their future collapsing in real time. These are people built around the dream that tomorrow can be better, and doom tears through that dream with cold efficiency, leaving the kind of silence that feels louder than any explosion. By now, the reader stops asking who can beat him in a fair fight, because it's obvious that fair stopped mattering a long time ago, which opens up a worse question. If teams can't stop him, what about the gods? That's where the story gets even more disturbing, because doom starts aiming higher, toward the beings who are supposed to sit above this mess. You expect cosmic resistance, thunder, judgment, some huge mythic showdown in the sky. What you get instead is the same pattern, just scaled up into blasphemy. He confronts figures with godlike power, and somehow the scenes still feel intimate, like one furious man walking into a sacred room and deciding the sacred part means nothing. The armor, the magic, the sheer nerve of it all makes Doom look less like a survivor now, and more like a disease the universe doesn't know how to reject. And that's terrifying, because once gods start falling, the normal rules aren't bent anymore. They're gone. What makes that hit so hard is that Doom still doesn't look triumphant. He's not savoring victory like someone who finally won. He looks driven, almost hollow, like every kill has to immediately be followed by the next one because stopping would mean feeling what he's done. That emptiness is part of why he's so dangerous here. A conqueror can be negotiated with. A man trying to punish existence can't. And as more impossible names fail to stop him, the survivors are left with one miserable truth. This isn't about defending the world anymore. It's about whether there's even enough of the world left to defend, which is why the few heroes still breathing start reaching for the last thing anyone in Marvel turns to when strength, science, and even gods all fail. They start thinking about cosmic judgment, about powers older than empires and colder than revenge, because if doom has become something the universe itself should reject, then maybe the universe has to answer back. And if you're still with me here, subscribe, because the next turn is where this story stops being a massacre and becomes something even stranger. The moment Doom's rampage finally collides with forces big enough to notice him, and instead of ending the nightmare cleanly, they make it even worse. That answer finally comes, but not in the way anyone would want. Doom's slaughter has gotten so huge, so unnatural, that the cosmic side of Marvel can't ignore it anymore. The sky doesn't just crack open for a bigger fight. It opens because reality itself is treating Doom like an infection, and the first thing that steps in is the kind of power heroes usually pray will never notice them at all. For a second, it feels like the story is about to correct itself. These are beings tied to balance, judgment, forces that make gods look local. Against anyone else, this is the end. But Doom isn't standing there like a madman swinging wild anymore. He's cold, focused, almost quiet, and that makes it worse. Because when these cosmic powers confront him, he doesn't panic. He studies them, finds the weakness in the machinery of creation itself, and turns their own scale against them, which means the nightmare hasn't hit its ceiling at all. That's the twist that makes this story so disturbing. Doom doesn't just beat heroes. He keeps climbing the food chain until the people who should be untouchable start falling too. You can picture it like a ladder being kicked apart, rung by rung, street heroes, legends, gods, then the things above gods, and with every body that drops, the universe feels less like a place and more like an empty house with the lights going out room by room, which raises the ugliest question yet. If even cosmic judgment can't stop him, who's left to say no? And the answer, somehow, is still no one. Not because nobody cares, but because by now Doom has done something even more terrifying than winning fights. He's broken the idea of resistance. The surviving corners of reality aren't mounting some glorious last stand. They're hiding, scattering, praying, and that tells you everything. When a universe full of people who have faced Galactus, Celestials, and literal apocalypse decides that Doom is the one thing they can't come back from, this stops being a villain story and starts feeling like an extinction event. And if that sinking feeling is hitting the same way for you, drop a like, because this is exactly why this version of Doom sticks in people's heads long after the details fade. What makes the ending land is that it doesn't come with relief. There isn't a clean final duel where goodness reasserts itself and the page closes on hope. Doom reaches the point where there is almost nothing meaningful left to conquer, and that victory feels rotten. The bodies are gone, the noise is gone, the resistance is gone, and what's left is a man standing over a dead universe proving the one thing he always wanted to prove, that he could. But once that question is answered, another one crawls in immediately, because if your triumph requires every living voice to be silenced, was this power, or just the most complete form of emptiness imaginable? That's why the villain who killed the Marvel Universe hits harder than a simple shock title. It isn't only about the count of dead heroes, even though that part is brutal. It's about watching Doom push victory so far that it curdles into isolation. He doesn't save the world his way. He doesn't remake it into something better. He wins so absolutely that winning itself becomes meaningless, and that's the real sting left behind when the dust settles. In the end, the scariest part of Doom's rampage isn't just that he was strong enough to kill everyone. It's that the story lets him get what villains usually only dream about: total proof, total domination, total silence, and then shows the cost in full. A universe of legends is reduced to a monument to one man's need to be right. And that's why this storyline lingers, because underneath all the cosmic violence and impossible power, it leaves you with a simple, ugly truth. The final shape of Doom's victory isn't glory. It's a throne in a graveyard.